Tell us your name and tell us about your project.
My name is David Miller. I am a physicist with the University of Chicago. I'm actually a professor there. I'm a PhD in physics from Stanford in 2011. I specialize in research that focuses on fundamental structures of matter, specifically very small particles. I actually worked on the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland. Um, the LHC is a 17-mile loop in which physicists use high energy particles at almost the speed of light, and they collide them at about 1.7 billion collisions per second. Around this 17-mile long accelerator, there's actually four different experiments: the Atlas, the LHCb, the CMS, and ALICE. I worked on the Atlas project, specifically the detector. I actually helped build it, and you can think of it like a giant camera. It is the largest detector ever built for a particle accelerator, and it captures so much data. It's 60 million megabytes per second. So one of the problems with this amount of information is it's really too much to go through. So I helped develop a trigger system. So what the trigger does is it picks events with distinguishing characteristics for physicists to analyze. So it has a two-stage selection process. The first stage, decisions made in like 2.5 microseconds. Okay, so in these 2.5 microseconds, it records over 100,000 different points of information every second. So then the second stage process kicks in, and it takes those 100,000 pieces of data and whittles them down to about 1,000 pieces by looking at specific detector regions and pieces of information that may be important to physicists. This data is then passed on to data storage systems, big servers, so scientists can analyze the information after it's been filtered.
What were you guys trying to do or find?
Our mission was to find answers for some of the missing pieces of the universe and to better understand subatomic particles. So we wanted to know, what are the basic building blocks of matter? What are the pieces of the pieces? What are some of the fundamental forces of nature? What is antimatter? So for this, we used the Atlas. And what we were looking for was a theoretical particle called the Higgs boson. So if we could find evidence of the Higgs, this would prove the existence of the Higgs field, which is how we believe that particles get their mass. So quantum field theory states that all particles are fluctuations within quantum fields, whether it's gravitational, magnetic, or the Higgs field. The Higgs field is everywhere in the universe, and particles that make up matter, the more they interact with the Higgs field, the greater their mass. So to better understand this field, we can think of it like air. So you can't feel air, you can't see air, but through scientific method we were able to prove its existence. So with the Atlas project, we decided to prove that the Higgs was real. So if we did not find the Higgs, the standard model of physics doesn't work, and we can't use it anymore. So what we did with the experiment was, if you could smash particles together with high enough energies and then watch those collisions, you may see evidence of these particles, but just for a very short time. But to create these collisions, we would have to have a gigantic particle accelerator, like the LHC.
Where did the project or experiment occur?
The Atlas project and the LHC took over 20 years to complete. It's located on the Franco-Swiss border in Geneva, Switzerland, about 100 meters below quite beautiful farmland. The tube that the LHC rests in is 27 meters across and is over 17 kilometers long. In 2008, the LHC was first turned on, and the first collisions were observed. Very shortly afterwards, though, the LHC had an issue with its coolant, which caused a mechanical failure in its magnets in a portion. So the LHC was powered down for over a year for repairs. In 2009, they started back up and began observations again. It took over 2.5 years of observations and data, but the Higgs boson was discovered and was presented at the ICHEP conference in July of 2012.
Can you explain what the Higgs boson particle is and why it was important to find it?
The theory behind the Higgs boson was proposed in 1962 by Peter Higgs. He postulated that the Higgs boson explained why certain particles have mass. The boson got its name in mainstream media as the God particle because it's believed that it's what caused the Big Bang and created the universe. However, the Higgs is much more complex than that. In physics, there is something known as the Standard Model, and it's the basis for our understanding of the world and the universe. At the center of this Standard Model, there was a missing piece. We study particles because just after the Big Bang, that's all there was. Particles. They carry all the information about our universe, how it got started, and our future. All known matter is made up of atoms, electrons, protons, and neutrons in different configurations. And there have been hundreds of particles discovered since the 1930s, but scientists realized that most of these particles were made up of 3 bits called quarks. There are only a handful of fundamental particles. The Higgs field is thought to give mass to those subatomic particles, like quarks, and leptons, which make up ordinary matter. It was important to find the Higgs because without a particle like it, life would not exist.
What other significant events were happening around the world during that time?
2012 was a pretty crazy year. Some people thought the world would end December 21st of that year due to the culmination of the Mayan calendar. The United States saw President Barack Obama winning his second term. Mexico, France, and Egypt also had presidential elections, so it was a time of political change in the world. There were several major events in science that year. The Mars rover Curiosity landed on Mars and began its exploration. James Cameron built his own submersible and took it to the deepest part of the ocean, Challenger Deep, inside the Marianas Trench. A private company, SpaceX, launched almost 900 pounds of cargo to the ISS, which was pretty historic for a private company. Near the same time, researchers from the University of Washington were able to sequence the entire genome of a fetus using a blood sample from the mother and a saliva sample from a father. So it was a big year for scientific achievement, but the scientific discovery that topped them all was the discovery of the Higgs boson.
Who else was involved in the project?
The LHC is a collaborative project for multiple countries around the world. It's one of the largest scientific projects ever attempted. It's on the scale of the Apollo missions and the subsequent moon landing. In the LHC project, there was over 10,000 people from 100 different nations, working with 100,000 computers, which were connected all over the world. These computers dealt with the data that the LHC provided the scientists. In fact, the World Wide Web was invented at CERN so that physicists all over the planet could deal with the data. It is actually kind of cool. There were over 5,000 people who worked on just the Atlas portion of the project. The United States sent scientists from the University of Chicago, Boston University, and the University of Michigan, and those schools played a pretty heavy part in the Atlas project. So it'd be pretty impossible to name all the people involved.
What was your role in the project?
I worked on the construction of the Atlas project, as well as the operation of the detector and its tracking systems. My job now is working on the trigger, which I explained earlier, which is the part of the detector that examines incoming data from all the billions of collisions per second and decides which data to keep. I also work with a team that builds new instrumentation, high-speed electronics, and real-time algorithms for this data processing. And I also help out with analysis techniques for studying these interactions. Data collected using the ALICE detector allows us to perform some of the most sensitive measurements of the standard model of particle physics to date, as well as the ability to search for new phenomena produced from these collisions at the LHC.
What impact did your project have on the physics community?
Well, the discovery of the Higgs particle confirmed the standard model. Without the Higgs, the standard model falls apart in most of our understanding of physics today. It was wonderful and amazing that we're able to discover it, and how much we've learned since then. But from my perspective, the work has only just begun. The discovery of the Higgs provided physicists are on the right track with the standard model. It has opened up more possibilities for discovery of unknown particles in the future. With ramp ups of the energies at the LHC, it's hard to tell what we'll discover next.